Well, good morning, everybody. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I'm just going to jump down on the front so I can actually see the screen as well, because I want to point to different bits and bobs of it today. So, firstly, welcome, welcome, welcome. Today is pretty exciting. We're going to run through a few bits and bobs on conversion. The main goal for today is really so you guys can understand where people are leaking from your website, what to do to actually go and solve it, so you can improve your revenue as well. Oh, wrong way. I was thinking about everyone's experience at Retail Fest at the moment, and it must be exciting for everybody because I've never seen in the 27 years in digital so much transformation and so much acceleration in digital that we have in the last 6 months. And I don't know if you're anything like me, but every day there's a new app, a new way, and a new way to improve your business. And I could only imagine how challenging and overwhelming it could be for yourselves today with you've got so many experts, so many options, and so many things you can do to improve your business. But at the end of the day, it comes down to really 3 things to be mindful of. One is, what are you doing? Is it increasing your sales, lowering your costs, or improving your brand? So even though everything you'll see today and all the 300 experts and all the different ways to improve your business, it really comes down to these 3 main things that anything's trying to achieve. And the good thing is, anything you do follows this main formula, which is, firstly, you need to identify what's the challenge that you're trying to solve. So where is the actual problem? The next one is, once you can find the problem, coming up with an effective solution to actually solve it. Then executing that solution, either implementation, test, or then implementation. And if it works, you do more of it. And if you do less of it. So irrespective of all the different ways to improve your business, the way they should all work is, firstly, identify a problem, come up with a solution, execute it. If it does well, do more. If it does not so good, do less. This process is actually what we call conversion rate optimization. So optimization is a process of finding the problems, coming up with a solution, executing it, and if it works, scale it. If it doesn't, learn and do it again. So when we're looking for people that maybe are not converting at the moment, it can be really frustrating because you can say, I've got the best product, I've got a great web experience, and I'm driving people to the site, but they're not converting. And it can be really, really challenging. So today, I'm going to walk you through exactly how you can find where people aren't converting from and why. So let's have a look at a typical funnel. And this should be relatively familiar to everybody as you're driving traffic. And we've got some numbers here just to give a bit of an example of how big these impacts can be. So we've got 100,000 clicks. Oh, got a spelling error. It should be 100,000, not 10,000. 100,000 clicks, and they're landing on the website. This website, let's assume that 70% of those people are engaged, which means that 30% have bounced. So you've got 30% of your traffic is just gone. You're not going to be able to convert those people at all. After those people have engaged on the website, the next typical action that you would like them to do is to add to cart. So if you've got 70,000 people engaging on the site, but in this example here, if my little pointer works, pointer doesn't work, you've got only 4% of people who engage then ended up adding to cart. I've marked that in red because on average, the industry average we look for is between 8 to 12%. So you can see in this example, we've had people come to the website, but a low level of them actually take that next step to add to cart. Post that, you've now lost 67,000 opportunities to actually convert them because they've left. They'll start to the checkout, and then they'll finally check out as well. And you can see that they incrementally drop down each step to finally get to the final transactions that we have. So we've got now just 1,000 people who have completed a transaction. So we started at 100,000 and they've fallen out all the way along the funnel. What's great about this way of visualizing it is we can see roughly where the main issue is coming from. Based on this data, it looks like it's coming from when the web engagement to the add to cart. And that's a little bit tricky because you're wondering, well, what are they doing between landing on the website and actually adding to cart? To find that, we use what's called, before that, if we were to fix that issue, I should say, and we were to go from, say, 4%, which is that now, to then 7% add to cart, the revenue would change from 121K up to over 200K. So that small change in that funnel metric can have massive impacts on your revenue. So let's find out, how do we find those people that are engaged on the website, but they're not adding to cart? How do we find out where they've defected? And this is the first thing that I'd like you just to all sort of just pay a little attention to, because if you've been doing optimization and you're not really seeing the dial move, this is potentially why. We've got all those people now that are on the website, they're engaged. But as you can see from the journey here, a certain percentage are just in the research phase. They're not interested yet to even purchase. They're not in the buy flow. So there's no way really to convert these people until they get to the buy flow. So a percentage of your traffic, they're not ready to buy yet. Then you've got people in your buy flow, which is fantastic. And then outside of that, you've also got people in the account section. They're looking at their past orders, the transactions that are coming up. So really, you've only got 70% of that traffic who are actually ready to purchase. So once you exclude those two different segments, we're now looking at the users in great detail to see where do they go. And in this example, I've come up with saying that they're exiting from the PDP. So let's assume that we are able to identify this segment, and then we can see most of those segments are exiting from the PDP. From there, you'll go down to that particular page. And on that page, you would like to see, well, what's causing these people to exit? What's causing them to leave the website? Now, if you Google or go to chat, there's 1,000,001 checklists that you can come up with on how to make a really good PDP. They are helpful, but maybe not all that helpful. What I find more beneficial in my experience is I use a behavioural framework called Relish. And what Relish does is it gets you to ask questions in the eyes of the consumer. So the first thing there is a relatability. When people are landing on the PDP, is it what they expected? Is this going to solve my problem? And by asking yourself those questions, you put yourself in the shoes of the consumer, which enables you to truly find the problem and come up with solutions to solve it. So if anyone has any questions around Relish, just because I'm a little bit short time today, I couldn't sort of go into everything, but come talk to me afterwards and I'm happy to share with you the framework. So once you've found the problem and you've potentially come up with a solution, there's two things you can do. One, you can get that solution and boom, implement it directly onto the site to hopefully improve it. The benefit with this is that it's the fastest way to make a change. Found a problem, come up with a solution, bang, pushed it into production and off you go. The other one it's good for, if it's in a low risk area. If you've got a change, let's say on the research flow or in the account flow, you don't need to test it, just implement it and move on. Or, you can also remove all the operational efficiency so you don't have to go through different levels of compliance. The negative to this is that you might actually make a change that is not actually positive. So you've implemented this change and it's now having a negative impact. Or you've made that change and it's difficult to understand what the value of it is. So whilst it's positive from speed, there's a risk with performance and potential a little bit of knowledge. The other option is to test it before you implement it. And here's some of the benefits to it, is that it will completely reduce the commercial risk. When you make a change on the website, it's either going to be positive and helpful, or it's going to be negative and potentially take you backwards. Testing before you implement it completely removes that risk, and it makes ensure that anything that you implement is positive and it's going to be helpful for your conversions. The other one is it actually delivers a better customer experience because every time you run a test and every time your customers validate it's a positive experience, you're giving them what they want, not what you think, not using I reckon, not using the hippo. It's actually what the customers are responding positively to. So by doing optimization where you're implementing based on what the customers are positively interacting to, you're crafting an experience that the customers actually want. And therefore you have better loyalty with your website. You can then scale the learning so you can find an insight and then scale that to other areas of the website as well. The negative too, sometimes people think the time and cost can be a lot with testing. The reason I put it as a consideration is it actually saves you time and money as well. It saves you time by not implementing the wrong thing, and it saves you money by not losing opportunity because you've given people a poor experience. And the final one, though, to be considerate of, testing does take traffic. If you don't have high volumes of traffic, you need to consider whether or not testing is actually right for you as well. So that's one key consideration. The reason I also want to share that testing is important is I want to take you back to a test that I ran for OPSM where we were trying to improve the booking on the iTest page. So this is a page here. People were coming in, there was a high bounce rate, people weren't engaging with it. So the hypothesis we came up to was that we needed to be more relatable to the user and really find ways to get them to engage with the content. So I designed this. And I was really proud of this test. I thought, this is awesome. This is going to absolutely crush it. And everyone also agreed. We're like, let's do it. So we did. And it crashed their conversions. I can't put it on the slide, but 32% drop in overall bookings was horrendous, which is so grateful that we tested it. Otherwise, they would have had an experience which was negative. What test actually won was this one. Why was this one on the left or right, the last one, better than the one in the middle? It's because it actually solved the customer's problem. The reason why they weren't converting initially here was because the customer was concerned, is it going to cost me money? Do I have to give them a credit card? Can I use Medicare? Can I not use Medicare? What are the challenges that I'm going to face? So by just simply highlighting those main anxiety points as benefits, as we did in the other experience, users saw it, felt comfortable, and then moved through for the booking, and that increased the bookings by 28%. And I think we ran this test about 10 years ago, and they're actually still using that treatment right now. So it's obviously definitely working, which is fantastic. So the other benefits for running and doing this process of testing and validating before implementing is that you will increase your sales without increasing your marketing spend. We're not saying don't spend on marketing, we're just saying make it more efficient and effective with optimization. It strengthens your brand because you're giving people positive experiences. You're scaling up on success. And the final one that sometimes we don't talk about, but it's actually so important, it stops the arguments in the office. And I'm not sure if anyone's had that experience where you're really passionate about something, someone else is really passionate about something, and then you just lock horns and then it doesn't go anywhere. Data doesn't lie. The truth will come out once we actually run the test. So it's an easier way to make decisions. So how do you precisely and yourselves find the conversion leaks in your own business right now? So the way to do that is to firstly define, do you even have a conversion problem? And the most easiest way to do that is where you look at your funnel and comparing your funnel up to the industry average gives you an idea of whether or not we're leading, we're lagging, and what's the size of the opportunity as well. So in this example here, we can see there's about $1 million of opportunity between what they're performing and where they could be. And for businesses, you've got to think, is that $1 million worth trying to recover and to try and build on? And in my mind, it's nearly 25% of their revenue. I'd say I think it's definitely worthwhile chasing. The next thing is, where are they falling out from? And this is what's so exciting about right now. Before, to try and quantify and identify user journeys would take my data team and my data scientists at least 1 to 2 weeks. It's a very big project to do this accurately. But now with AI and the right methodology, we can do this in just a few moments. So AI can run thousands and thousands of different combinations to find these insights. So here we can see that we've got different channels or journeys people are going through that are converting at different levels, and they're falling out at different points. But this is the key. If you've been running optimization and you haven't been moving the dial much, this is why. When we segment, though, the traffic, so we're not looking at all traffic, all channels, and let's say we just look at mobile and paid social, you'll find that actually your best performing journey completely changes. So does all your most opportunistic and your worst performing journey. So the key to really finding where these leaks are is by segmenting it down to the relevant audience which actually has that problem. And there's a saying, there's a tyranny of averages where averages mean nothing. So what we need to do is find out exactly the audience and where they're falling out from. And in this example, we can again assume it's on the product display page highlighted in red. The next thing we need to do is, once we know roughly where the problem is and the size of the issue, is then seeing, is there any environmental factors which could be contributing to this as well? No worries. And the two to think of is the website completely dropping down in conversion, or are there different product categories that are potentially dropping our performance as well? And you might find that actually the website is totally fine, the conversions are totally fine, but it's a category or product that's actually drawing everything down. And this is why the details matter to understand where the drop is coming from. The other part would be looking at what are people searching for internally. We've got some clients, we've noticed they've got high search terms for products, but that whole product category has dropped down. Why? Is it a stock issue? Is it a stock availability issue? Are people not even able to find it on the web? So this gives you evidence of where the problems could be. We want to check your website core vitals. Is your site speed okay? Is the accessibility, people, the tap targets, the contrast ratio, is that all where it should be? And once you've ticked off all these fundamentals, the last one there is symmetric messaging, is also to pick up as well. So these fundamentals need to make sure that they're all ticked and perfect before we even go further. The reason I put symmetric messaging up here for everybody today is, in my experience, I find this is where most people get it wrong, just straight away. And it's because they've got this lovely creative that they spend a lot of time and effort on building out the marketing channel, but it doesn't relate then to the page that they're driving it to. So I've just got a few things up here as well. Please take a photo of it, because they're just some of the fundamental things to make sure you're getting right when you're sending traffic to your site. Once you know where the page is, we can use other technology to see what are people doing on that page, which will precisely tell us where the conversion leak is coming from. So we can use heat maps to see where people's eyes are falling down, what content they want to consume. We can use smart diagnostic tools to actually understand the behavior. We can use rage clicks or dead clicks to see where people are getting frustrated in that experience, or even deep form analysis to see where people are hesitating through the process as well. This gives you hyper focus and attention to exactly where that problem is. So we know the page, we know where on the page, which enables us to come up with the why. Why are people falling out of the funnel? This is where you create your hypothesis, which is simply a statement of what the problem is, what the solution is, and the expected outcome. I've created a nice little framework if you're ever curious how to create one, just by following those steps on the screen. Once you've got your hypothesis, you know what you want to test, then it's deciding, am I just going to implement this, or am I going to test it and then implement it? And if you can, feel free to take a screenshot of that. This is a decision tree that will help you go through and decide on whether or not you should implement it or test it. So once you've got your framework sorted, here are a number of different variations or different concepts that you might want to either implement or test. Again, this is where AI is sensational. Before, we would take days to do a how might we session to come up with all these different ideas, whereas AI can produce multiple ideas really, really, really quickly. So it speeds it up. So you could implement that, or if you wanted to test it, you might find that actually testing is more effective, because Some of them may work really well, some of them may have no impact, and some actually may have negative impact as well. Once you find a positive solution, then the next goal is, how do I scale that message throughout the website? So for example, if we found that selling subscriptions with a 15% discount was positive on the PDP, where else can we implement that onto the user journey so they can see that value and then wanting to move forward with it? So not just finding one finding and implementing that, it's finding a finding, the reasoning, and then executing that across the journey. If it doesn't work, go back, understand, and then try again to resolve the leak. It brings you back to the beginning part of the process. So to solve the leaks, it really just comes back down to those fundamentals. Identify the problem, come up with a solution of how you're going to solve it, implement and monitor, or test, validate, and implement. And then if it works well, scale it. If it doesn't, learn again and repeat. Everything I showed you today, all that data that was available, is all available now in your GA4 account. But I don't know about you, but I actually hate GA4. I find it really tricky to use and it's a little bit frustrating. So what I did was I've created a visualization layer called the Leak Finder. And what it does, it connects to your analytics and it pulls out all those metrics you need to help you find what those leaks are. We literally just built it and we're offering it to all our lovely friends here today to jump in, try it for free, just in exchange for telling us what you think and if it was helpful. So if you wanted to get any of that data that we showed up today on your own account, just clicking that little QR code, and then we can give you a bit of a pre-access into the tool that will do it all for you for free. Thank you very much, everyone, and happy to answer any questions. Thank you.